posting it in YouTube. And I'm going to share my screen, my full screen, because I'm going to jump later to the Explorer. So I hope I don't show you any very intimate things in the channel, in my screen. Well, first of all, thanks to the Universidad Complutense de Madrid, because my current salary is paid by them, and if it was not because of that, I would not be able to do this. I do this through a grant that's called Una for Career, paid by the European Commission, and this is under the Una Europa alliance. There's an alliance of universities in Europe. Thanks to Cellfos, that is giving us the support to have this chat. Then thanks to the Exeter University and the Instituto de Astrofísica de Andalucía, that they have been financing me the last years, and finally thanks to the International Dark Sky Association for organizing the International Dark Sky Week. That this talk is part of the activities of the International Dark Sky Week. I'm Alejandro Sánchez de Miguel. I'm a postdoc researcher in the Complutense University, and I'm going to start my presentation about the potentials of the remote sensing at night, or as I call it, astronomers looking down instead of looking up. Well, the first is to show and to credit this work from the ESA, the European Space Agency, that probably took one of the very first multispectral images of the Earth at night, and for sure one of the very first from the far orbit, not close-ups images as we have from other places, and this composite was made by an amateur astronomer that Roger. I remember more him from his Twitter account, that is Landru69, if I recall properly. But this image was taken by a probe, by the Rosetta probe that went to this asteroid, this comet, 67P Churyumov-Gerasimenko. But during their 11 years travel, they did several flybys next to the Earth, and once they took this image, and this is real color. This morning I was talking about, and I will talk about today also, about how important the color of the remote sensing is at night. And see here you also can see the auroras and very remarkable details, like these fires in the that is from the oil extraction. Here, and that was like the first European image taken from the space of the Earth, already long time ago, a pioneer. And this picture was taken by an astronaut, by Matthias Müller, quite recently. And this is the Netherlands. This is Rotterdam with a port. And for example, this this image is quite interesting, and I presented this not exactly the same presentation, but nearly the same with very small alterations recently in a conference at the headquarters of the European Space Agency in Leiden, in Noordwijk, that if I recall properly is around here. And first of all, this image is quite useful for several reasons. One is the greenhouses. We can clearly see the greenhouses here, 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 here also. And this image, that for someone that don't know what it is, maybe it would be not that useful, but we can see a lot of things here. First of all, we can see boats around here. We can see these greenhouses. We can see the highways lit in this case. Other harbors, industrial areas, no, in the harbors also, other harbors here. And for example, in this case, the government of the Netherlands could use this for regulatory purposes, because there is a law in the Netherlands currently that forbids that greenhouses are without blinds at the first part of the night. So all these greenhouses that we see here are illegal. Not the greenhouse itself, but that they don't have curtains to block this light. Right now we have several instruments in the space, and historically we had several instruments. These Rosetta images are quite special because it was a probe that was not intended to do these images of the Earth. It was a pity, because you could see it in that image how it was perfectly capable, and the technology was already available to do this in color quite long ago. But obviously the technology improves. No, before nearly the only satellite that we had, except for the ISS, and then I will talk a bit on what is the issue with the ISS, was the DMSP. But the DMSP was a satellite designed, well, was not a satellite, was a constellation of satellites for meteorological issues, no? And yes, was sensitive at night, but was not extremely sensitive. And the resolution was quite poor. So probably any astronaut, a naked eye with no instruments at all, will see even better than this satellite. That's why I have chosen here Igor from the Young Frankenstein. That looks like a bit weird, because probably it would be like that. No, the only comparison. No, like even if we don't have good vision, we will see better than with the DMSP. The BEARS is an instrument on 2 satellites that we have now. That is the Suomi North Polar Partnership and the NOAA 20, that has much better resolution. In reality, the resolution is around 750 meters, but later they resample it and they average several images, so they do some kind of super resolution. So more or less the resolution currently is around 500 meters. Then the ISS, we cannot consider it a single instrument, because depending on what is the lens that you install in the camera, probably can be considered like just a binoculars or a resolution as the Hubble Space Telescope. No, obviously the diameter of the lens is not comparable. Yeah, but this comparison is a bit more to to what is the spatial resolution that we can get. And we have to think that in the space, when we look at sources in the universe, we don't have diffraction limit. Yeah, so we are only limited by diffraction. But on the ground, the limitations that we have are not the diffraction limit. So the size of our telescope, no, is the turbulence. The turbulence is the real limitation that we have. And when we look down, yeah, and indeed, for example, the Hubble Space Telescope was indeed a design for a spy telescope, yeah, but instead of looking down, looking up, but from military purposes. So if we think that we are going to look down, yeah, then our limitation is not the size of the mirror, is the focal length, and is the turbulence. And the typical turbulence, and this is every astronomer knows this, it typically is around, if you have good seeing, not very big turbulence, the best that you can get is like 0.51 arcseconds. So even the telelenses on the ISS, they are quite close to the best resolution that we can have, the spatial resolution, no? Obviously, then the size of the lens can get us more light, and more light means that also we can have shorter exposures, and that means that we can try to trick a little bit and do lucky imaging, no? But this comparison with the James Webb and etc. from here in the spatial resolution is quite accurate. So when we have pictures taken by an astronaut, like this one that I have here behind me, is equivalent more or less to when we compare to see something with a naked eye from the orbit to have the Hubble Space Telescope. Then there's many things that are happening, no, and the potentials of having a human in the space taking these images is very big. No, for example, here we have a picture of La Palma, where we can really recognize that are nearly all orange lights, except for a hotel here. Another case that this image has been used, for example, for raising the awareness that this hotel of here was not following the laws in the Canary Islands. But for example, this is another image of the same location, La Palma, where we can see the volcano with no risk. In the case of La Palma, but it's a quite accessible place by plane, and this volcano was not that dangerous. So these images were not so useful yet at the time. But we have to think that here we have a direct view of the center of the volcano with no risks. And here we have another image of the volcano and the lava going out. And we can see how at the beginning is quite warm and emits a lot of light, then cools down, and only we see the edges of the lava. And there is many applications for nighttime remote sensing. For example, one of the biggest issues that we have right now is the CO2 emissions. one of the things that we can do with the CO2 emissions is trace them using nighttime satellite data. And I have been reviewing an article on this topic recently. So I hope there's going to be more and more articles on this soon. But definitely there is several ways of connecting this. No, directly the energy use. No, that is CO2 emissions. No, it's not when this CO2 has been generated, because the generation usually is on energy plants, not in nuclear plants. But the nuclear plants also don't produce CO2, but they waste a lot of heat on the water, so it's not very efficient. But it's clearly where there is energy, many times there is lights. No? Commercial centers. And another place that we can see very clear, and that is really linked with CO2 emissions, is on the oil extraction, no, with the flares that for security they have burning permanently, and there is several research done to link the intensity of these flares with the annual production of gas and oil. But there is other things. Now, first of all, obviously, money means money means I'm going to build houses. No, and build houses need concrete, needs trucks, needs a lot of energy intensive activities, and then we lead those houses or those streets. This CO2, this money, and that goes ending in CO2, and we see the house. Then the light that the houses have it themselves, not just the presence of a new development, but the intensity of the houses, of the light of the house. There we have more connection with the CO2. Then cars. Well, obviously the cars moving produce lights, dim lights, but produce lights that produce CO2, and that all of this is CO2. So relationship between the lights and the economy, no, that we see. And we can see many other things from the space. Now, I already mentioned the flares, the street lights. We can see monuments. Oh, sorry. Many times also a lot of heavy industry have a lot of lights, even dams, boats, cars have lights that we can see. Even, for example, we can see even planes. If you see these lines, these structures here, these are the routes, the intercontinental routes between the UK and Europe and the US. No, and we can see them here. We can see the boats routes, the fishing boats. We can see illegal fishing, no, when the boats cross, for example, this parallel, no, because it's protected areas. Or here, because many times the boats turn off their GPS and the transponder because they are going to do something illegal, but they don't turn off their lights because they need the lights to do the hunting, so the fishing. We can see fires, no, in red here. And we can see cars. This is the road from Las Vegas to, I think it's LA here. And really you can see, no, all these roads are not lit, and we see here, and mainly what we see here is how much cars we have in each road. Obviously, this is on this one of the not so nice things of the beers is that these images are taken very late at night, and obviously most of the traffic will be happening in early night, no? But also this gives us the baseline, no? If we anything that we do with this satellite, it will be like the baseline, and anything that is happening earlier obviously is more is much more heavy traffic, and there is much more activity in the early hours that at 1:30 solar time. That is when these images are taken. And also here in color, in fast color, you can see the diffuse light around the cities. So we can see also the light scattered around the cities because of the atmosphere and the aerosols. And this can help us, for example, also to trace air quality. To see the relevance on the time of acquisition of these images, here you have an image of the center of Madrid, where many monuments are lit. And if we compare with same area, but late at night, you can see how many sources disappear. And it's because Madrid has a law that inside the M30, that is this road of here, all ornamental lights should be switched off after midnight. Then, for example, another thing that we have been doing is tracing the change on the street lighting, no? How much light is being produced globally. Obviously, we have a problem with that, is that the VS and the DMSP, that were the satellites that they were in use most of this time, don't have color information. And as I'm going to show you that later, that's a big issue. And if we, for example, for tracing light pollution and global emissions, we only can say, okay, in this panchromatic band, in this band that takes everything and mix it all together, we have this trend. No? But for example, LEDs produce a lot of blue light. The white LEDs produce a lot of blue light. And as these satellites are blind to the blue light, and these light sources have been started to be quite popular after 2010, the risk of underestimating that blue light is an issue, and depends a lot on the color temperature of the light. No, for example, here's power emitted, but in this case is power emitted in blue light. Later, if you want, I can give you more details on this. Here we have a comparison between these more typical sources of data. No, that was the DMSP satellites. I told you that in reality these satellites were since the 70s, but the data that is more accessible is since 1992 until 2014 on a monthly composites. There is also daily data, but this is not so easy to find, and it's in an Amazon server, and this is is a bit complicated to use, and don't have much more. They have a quite bad resolution. No? Then we have the beers, the day-night band that I already mentioned, that improves the resolution a lot, and we have it since 2012 until now. And then we have the ISS that, as I said, this is in color, and we have it since 2003 until today. But this is not a satellite in reality. This is a human taking pictures with a DSLR. Although we published an article, and I will mention it a little bit later, about how we are calibrating these images. And for example, something that we are working on is in getting these images of Europe in black and white and giving them color, no, using the time lapses taken from the space. For example, this is just one time lapse. One time lapse, well, actually two time lapses, but taken in one orbit with two cameras pointing to two different sides. And first of all, it's easy to see the color difference between Belgium and the other countries. But later I will show you more things that have even more contrast, because this is the JPEG images. It's not, they are not the raw, and have not been any color adjustment. Here you can see much more colors, no? Much more contrast. This bluish light, for example, here in the Thiemat, and more orange lights from sodium lights, even red lights in some places for ornamental purposes, blue lights, and this is, as I mentioned, the problem of the time of the acquisition. No, and it's curious, no, because there is things that appear and then disappear. In Madrid, for example, for saving energy, many highways are turned off late at night. And here we have a bit of the source of the problem. No, the spectral response of Beers and DMSP. Beers is the black, and the DMS, no, Beers is the blue, and the DMSP is the black curve. You see, they are quite broad spectral response. The visible light more or less is finished around here, around between 600 and 700. After here, this is infrared light. And one of the issues is that the sodium lamps, these orange lamps that we have on the streets, that nothing to do with incandescent lamps. There's a lot of people that make that mistake. They have nothing to do with the incandescent bulbs, and they are very, very efficient lights. They have a huge emission line in the infrared here. Meantime, the LEDs, that this is saying LEDs is like saying anything, not saying anything, because there's LEDs of very different shapes. No, here we have 4,000 Kelvin, 3,000 Kelvin, 2,700 Kelvin, and PC amber LEDs. No? And we see that most of these LEDs have a huge peak on the blue. Not all, the PC amber, no, but all the other ones have a huge peak here, and it's a peak that the satellite cannot see, this satellite. Yeah, but what they can see is this infrared light that for us is useless. Meantime, the ISS, the International Space Station, just a simple DSLR camera, have 3 bands, And these 3 bands are enough to detect this blue light and distinguish these different LEDs, not just mix everything together. That's why, for example, we discovered that when we look at Milan, the city that I have behind me, the city of Milan had a transition between sodium lamps to LEDs. But in the satellite, we see a decrease on signal, but that decrease is fake. Well, it's not fake. It's just that don't mean that a human will see any decrease in light, in emitted light in that place. And indeed, when we use satellite data, no, orbit data, sorry, from the International Space Station, we see that it's nearly impossible to distinguish before and after when we tune the data, the ISS data, to mimic the intensity feature of the human eye, no, the lumens or candelas, no, and this was we should expect this because the municipality of Milan imposed that before and after the conversion to LEDs, there was going to be the same luminance level, and therefore it's not strange that we don't see a difference. The difference we see it when we check, for example, a blue light filter like the melatonin suppression impact, like the melatonin suppression index developed by Martino V, that is supposed to trace what would be the influence on the melatonin suppression, but don't really do that because you would need to consider also the intensity of the light. And then we see how the new street lights have a much higher percentage of blue light than before. So much that they increased at 37% the amount of blue light per watt emitted. When we combine the two things, how much blue light there is plus how much intensity light, we see that the light pollution in this particular band, that is a kind of cyan filter, has been like a 27%. So the municipality of Milan really didn't told much. They thought that they were going to reduce light pollution installing these LEDs, but the problem was that the horizontal lighting is not so important because the buildings block the light emitted horizontally. And second, these new streetlights were much more blue than emitted much more blue light than the previous ones, and they didn't consider that, and therefore probably trying to reduce the light pollution, they actually increase it. But now we have more resources. Now we have also a Chinese spy satellite that is the Jimlin, and here you have how it looks in this part the Viers in the area of Madrid. This is one of the very best ISS images that we have. And here we have the Jimlin. There is a commercial satellite. And here you can see how we can see the individual streetlights that with the ISS is quite hard. In the ISS we can distinguish streets, no? But we don't really can see much of the structure of the street. And obviously, if we zoom in, and the ideal would be, okay, it's great to have the Hubble Space Telescope or equivalent or the James Webb, but we have drones, no? And it's what happened in La Palma. In La Palma, maybe 20 years ago, these satellite images would have been the only thing available. But now we have drones so many times, we don't need to go to the orbit. That can be very, very expensive. And with a quite cheap drone, we can make a map with much higher resolution, up to 10 centimeters. And this was all these images are from the Complutense University area. And this one of drone in particular is one of the images on my thesis. But the good thing of being able to schedule, like in this commercial satellite, and not like in the ISS, because the ISS is amazing, no? Because we have a that source of data that we cannot go back in time, no? But in the ISS, yes, because the astronauts have been taking those images for since 2003, even earlier, as I will show you later, but not from the International Space Station, from the Space Shuttle. And we have some images in color even, but they are quite old. And now we can go to the archive and discover that was that impact, no? But when you already have the chances of choosing when to observe, you can do things like this. This is the center of Madrid. This is la Puerta del Sol, where every Christmas they put a lot of lights and so on. And here you see a cone. You can see here the shadow of the cone for the Christmas decorations, no? And at the same time, this was in street how to call this Google Maps, yeah, the satellite data on Google Maps. And here you have the counterpart in the light, no? And now is when I'm going to go for a second to the browser. And if you want to explore later these apps that I'm going to show you, you can go here in PMISSON users Earth Engine.app, and here you have some of the tools that have been developing through the years. And we created this Christmas, and we made a press release, and I hope you have some time to write also the paper and make the analysis. We're still working on that, where we took images of Madrid during Christmas and after Christmas to see what would be the impact, no, of these Christmas decorations, no? Because every year in Christmas we have this topic of the light pollution because of the Christmas decorations and so on. That is a relevant topic, and we clearly can see, no? We really can see the difference between the non-Christmas season and the Christmas season, and we can see all these lines. Obviously, most of these decorations are made to be seen during the night from the ground, so the ground, the space is not the best way of detecting them, no? But definitely we know it's all the light that we see here is light that was not supposed be intended to be seen, so it's waste. And here you can see, no, for example, all this street and this square, all these lines here. But what was quite noticeable was one of the decorations on the botanical garden of Madrid that had this huge installation, yeah, where usually well, in this map I cannot show you, but in other maps that we have other moments of the year, this has been completely dark, no, like these other areas. And this is quite relevant for a botanical garden because the lights really interfere with the physiology of the plants. So a lot of the research that will be done in this area will be biased because of the use of these Christmas decorations. Well, I'm going to go quite fast in this part because this talk is supposed to be quite not so technical, but if any of you are interested, we can go a bit in depth later. What we do to calibrate the pictures taken by the astronauts is first decode the proprietary format, in this case Nikon, then correct from the linearity, then correct from flat field that for many amateur astronomers is quite typical correction. Then if we want to make the absolute calibration, what we'll do is take images of stars and do the astrometry and then the photometry, and then we have at least color coherence in between the different channels. And we know that the difference between the red and the green and the blue have a physical meaning. It's not just tuning for beautiness. Then we apply that calibration to the science images. Then we georeference the images. Then we do an atmospheric correction, and then if we really need the absolute calibration, what we can do is apply the absolute calibration from the stars. But then what we are doing is we're trusting the calibration that we had before, and we have to know exactly which window the astronaut was using. Or if not, we can do an intercalibration with other sources. Now, for example, with other ISS images or with the beers itself. This is an example of how a flat field looks like of a 50 millimeter lens. Then this is an example of how looks the linearity of the Nikon cameras. This is some curves about how to use stars as a source of calibration. This is actual fits between pictures taken from the ISS that they don't have atmosphere, so they don't have the problem of the extinction to see and to calculate the calibration value. And later this is a plot showing the performance of this calibration between different images, that is the different markers. And we see that yes, depending of the bits of the image, because they can be of 12 bits or 14 bits, we have a much larger dynamic range or more shorter. Later, once we have already the image, what we do is georeference it, and this is the raw image. And if we paint a ellipse, well, if we paint a circle on the ground and we reproject it back, we see what we have is an ellipse, and the shorter semi-minor axis direction will tell us from where the astronaut was looking at and was taking the picture, from here. And we can make the atmospheric correction. for example, from this image, I think it is a 24mm picture, so not super high resolution. In this paper that is cited here, we made a comparison, for example, with the beers, scaling the values, and we see that they are perfectly comparable. We did it comparing pixel by pixel. But we can have information that we don't have, because, for example, the picture of the ISS was taken much earlier, and therefore we were able to see things that the beers cannot see. For example, here is several malls. No, this is the Plaza Norte 2. This is the Gran Plaza. This is I cannot remember the name, but it's another commercial center. In the center of Madrid, we have many monuments and many other things. And here, for example, we have the football field of the Real Madrid. But the ISS also the astronauts take many images, not one single image, and so it's multi-angle, and we can see how the lights block the monuments block. For example, this light of here, and in some places some lights appear, and then in other places the lights appear. There's no light, appears the light, and then disappears again. So right now we already have multi-angle lights. This effect of how the buildings can block the light from the light sources was already mentioned in my thesis, but my colleague Wang and Miguel Roman had this other picture much more beauty, no? So in this blocking effect. In this case, with the Suomi MPP, that they don't have that resolution to see actually what is going on, no? And that's one of the good things of having more resolution, that you can actually see that effect. Later I can show you that also on the GimLink. With the ISS, also, as the astronauts have been playing with many time exposures, meaning different lenses, we can do HDR, high dynamic range images, where we can see, for example, in the case of Madrid, here I have composed several images of different exposure times, and we can see all the diffuse light, all the light is scattered to the zenith, yeah, but projected in the ground. And later, and we can see it also for other cities like Avila, Toledo, Guadalajara, Segovia, Valladolid, and even smaller cities. No, we can see this scattered light, and this scattered light, as I mentioned, probably will be useful to see how it can be used to trace air quality at night, and also to measure sky brightness. No, how bright is the sky, and we were able to see this not only with the ISS, that this is the same image that I showed you before, but in a astronomer's unit, that is the magnitude per second. But this was seen also with the DMSP, but the DMSP was so bad the resolution that even the direct emissions were blurred and mixed with the diffuse light. In the BS is much more clear. No, here is the difference between what was expected and what it was direct lights, and this tail of here is the direct lights. This tail that we see here, it will be what is the light that we see when we see directly to the street light. In the case of the DNSP, you see that the own optics was making a bit like a bad radio transfer model, no? But also was seeing direct diffuse light, real diffuse light. And the ISS is much more clear, no? How this tail is directly the direct lights that the ISS see. Then there is still many applications, and we collaborate with a lot of people. And this here is a brief list of all the applications that we can have. First of all, we are collaborating and this morning I was talking about it, the epidemiology of breast and prostate cancer, and also colorectal cancer. We are also collaborating in a study of how lights can disturb the child's growth, but that's still in research. Ecosystem disruption, pollinator disruption, plant disruption, bats, how obviously the astronomy, disruption of migrating birds, seabirds, turtles, sustainable agriculture or not sustainable agriculture, and obviously sustainable development. No? These are topics that we are already collaborating with someone. But we are open, and there is many other issues. For example, the main reason why we have lights is for safety, but there is not much analysis on the real effect of these lights on safety or not. If you want to find the images of the ISS, you have to go here to the NASA webpage, where the images taken by any astronaut, like even if it's from the ESA, from JAXA, from the Roscosmos, they put it here. Well, the Roscosmos ones sometimes they don't upload it here. It depends of the particular astronaut. But if you go there, you will see it's quite hard to find the images. And that's why we created the Cities at Night project, where the people help to locate images. The first years we did a pilot with fully volunteer and fully or in-kind contributions, where the people help us to catalog these images and say, oh, this is a city, this is stars, this is auroras, and also ping where they thought that was this picture on a map. And with that, we created this atlas of the mid and high resolution images, saying all these images of here are cities. No, the location is not very accurate, but all these images are actual cities. And then we have another map of images with locations, with actual locations. And we are working on the new release in few months, when all our volunteers finish the work of the georeference images, no, the actual maps. But we saw that the astronauts were taking many images of the same places, so we decided to make an app specifically to help people to find images similar to those that we already had located. Because, for example, in the case of Montreal, it's quite easy to recognize, no, this shape of here, or here, or here, or here, or here, or here, no, and say, okay, this is Montreal. I'm from Spain. I have never seen Montreal, but I know this is Montreal, and I can use Lost at Night app to identify this city. But there had been images way earlier. Now, for example, this was Houston, and you can see the resolution of this image is much higher than the DMSP. And this was made with a camera built in 1987. This other image was this is from New York, and this was filmed and is in color, and this was from 1998. This other, you can see clearly colors. It's a bit blurred, yeah, but you already can see colors, and this is film also. This is the Middle East. This is Murcia, where you can see the colors, and these colors means they were not LEDs at the time, but they were these greenish areas means areas that they were using mercury lamps at the time. This is this very bad image, and sorry, but there is in my Twitter there's a bit improved image of this is Chicago, but there was even videos made at that time, and I have been able to find like 4 videos, and this was recorded nearly in real time, and even broadcasted in TV. This was obviously not from the International Space Station. This was from the Space Shuttle. And there were other experiments, because the nighttime remote sensing, for example, for detecting electric phenomena in the high clouds, were quite high and still quite high science topic. So many of these instruments were able to have images of Barcelona, Madrid, Porto, Lisboa, and many other cities, but nearly no one knows that this exists. Now we have permanent broadcasting in color from the ISS. This, for example, is London. The quality is not great, but they are permanently recording, and it's a pity because we could start mapping in color all the world this way. Not great quality, but yeah, we could do that. This that was London. This is another video. This is to detect meteors. I don't know if you saw that one. I hope you did. I'm going to put it again. Yeah, and you can see here the color is much more clear. Not like the previous video. Another meteor. So many times, even doing science for remote sensing, we can do meteor science, and these have been actual missions that have been looking to the Earth. Yeah. This is another video. This is the south of Spain. This is Granada, Almería, Carral Alto Observatory will be around here. And a meteor here. But the very best example of this, and later maybe I will go to pick up this camera, because I have this camera and this lens here in my house. Not obviously not this one, because this one was at the International Space Station, but this was a Sony Alpha 7S2 with a nearly unmodified, just to be controlled remotely, and they were able to record this. I think maybe you don't hear the sound. The second. Well, I think you cannot hear the sound, but it's not so relevant. As you could have seen there, is spectacular, no? The quality that for free we could have, no? With the only thing that we need is to convince NASA and convince ESA to put an instrument, one of the instruments that they already have, probably permanently looking down to the Earth. Maxar recently published these images, and they are cited in this article. But the thing is that I have been trying to ask them to give us access to this data, and they have been refusing. And to the point that I started to be a bit suspicious. Sorry for saying this, but the thing is that the Chinese were already taking images that day, no, in that area. So I wonder if it's true that Maxar is truly able to do this, or they just bought these images from the Chinese. That would be quite sad. But we have tried to ask Maxar to buy nighttime images, and we have been completely unable to find a way. This is another video. If you can see the cars here, there is no sound. The cars moving, the city lights, the lights here. Yeah, and this is Las Vegas. This has the fountain, the spectacle, and this is a skybox imaging. Then later on, this was bought by Planet, the company, but Planet don't have interest. They think that there is not a market on the nighttime, and we had neither able to find to convince them to send us nighttime pictures. Meantime, in China, in the University of Wuhan, first of all, this year have been launched a new satellite. This is courtesy of the Dr. Xi Li, where they have launched and the satellite, and this is one of the very first images that they took from St. Petersburg in 8 bands with a resolution of 20 meters. This is what China is doing meantime. No, US and Europe are not having no real commercial or scientific satellites, except for the DMSP with 700 meters resolution. And meantime, the Chinese have already a 20-meter resolution 8 bands. Other things that we can do, no? For example, see the effect of the COVID lockdown. Going back to these apps. And the Jinlim constellation have been improving either operation, either the sensitivity, because it's not one satellite, it's several satellites. But they had some images from Madrid during the lockdown, the April of of 2 years ago, and was quite interesting, no? Because we're able to see exactly what kind of things were off. And here you already can see, no? All the sport fields, some monuments, like this one of here. It's a monument. And with this data from the Gymlin, we can really tell, no? For example, this was, I think this is the Corte Inglés. That is quite a popular commercial center in Spain. So this is one of the things that again we can do with these new satellites. The Christmas lights I already mentioned, but not only the Christmas lights, but also the cars. I don't know if you see moving here. Well, later you can see it more in detail, because we also have another app just to see, because these Gymlin images are not always one image. Yeah, they are usually take 8 images. Usually they only sell you one, but in our case we have a good connection with the dealer, and we request no, we want the eight images, no, to make an average and to see if we can improve the sensitivity. And we saturated a little bit some of the hotspots, but we got that, for example, if we wanted now in this app that we have here, we can go, for example, to this area and say, okay, I'm interested in this botanical garden, but I want to see all the botanical garden. Sorry, and we can see it, the video of those 8 images, and distinguish these cars, see how the lines are fading because of the blocking, and it's quite interesting. And okay, this is all that I have for you. And now, if you want to make me questions about any of this, I'm happy to answer you. You can do the questions through the chat, or just turn on your video and make the question yourself.
That was great.
Thank you.
My question is like a very simple one number. You said that the government in Milan wanted to have the same luminance level before and after, but as you calculated, they didn't do the job they thought they were going to do, because they put in lights that were too high temperature. Do you know what lights exactly they put in?
4,000 Kelvin.
Okay, and were they shielded in a
Yes, they were quite good shielded, but they didn't have dimming. I don't know if they have dimming now, but at the time they didn't have dimming. So it was quite sad, because for example, Madrid did also quite a big change, not as big as Milan, but Madrid did the 100% of the city, but not to LEDs. Only 33% to LEDs, and the rest of the 60%, what they did was just a pure and absolute power reduction. They took the 250 watts and put it on sodium lamps, and put it 150 straight. And as they did it for the whole city, or I see through contrast, not through absolute light, nobody notices it. When you go now to the people and you tell the people, oh, do you know that Madrid reduced by 50% the luminance in the whole city? It's like, I didn't notice it. I didn't notice it. No, the people did notice. In the other 33% of the city, they changed from 150 to 50 LEDs. Yeah, and with lower energy efficiency, even because this was 2015. And they put 3000 Kelvin. So in the case of Madrid, I have a paper on progress on this topic. No, Madrid is probably one of the best cases of how to do the things right. Not in every aspect, and there is other aspects that maybe I would not recommend. But from the energy saving and the ecological side, well, they save a lot of energy, and they didn't produce as much waste because sodium lamps are very easy to recycle. They did put dimming in Madrid. They did put dimming, and after midnight, even those LEDs and even the sodium lamps, they dim them. And meantime, Milan, they did this huge transition, and they cannot dim. I don't know if now they have installed dimming, but at the time, no. That for us was an advantage, no, because we were scared. No, oh, this reduction. If they have dimming, we are not going to be able to do it this way. So to use it as a calibrator, no. And maybe this reduction that we see is real, but no. When we saw in the ISS, no, there were no, or if there is any dimming, we had not been able to detect it.
I don't have a good feel for how many lights we're talking about for Madrid and Milan.
Madrid was around 230,000 around, and Milan, I expect that will be similar.
Okay, thank you.
So it was a huge change.
Really? Yes, Pittsburgh only has 40,000 approximately, just the city itself, and we're trying to not do it wrong when we do it in the next couple of years.
Yeah, I can give you some tools that I'm helping to develop for people that don't like very complex things, no? Because this is one of the problems now, that when the communication of this topic is so many details, dimming, the blue light, that people that is not used to deal with complex things, they get a bit saturated. But that's the thing, now that everything, all these topics are important, no? So what you have to do is put it in a spreadsheet that is not too complicated, that they only just fill the data and see the results, no? But sadly, it's not what we have right now.
The only other comment I wanted to make was I tried to reach out to Planet also, and they told me that their nighttime data that they are collecting is only for military purposes.
For?
Military.
It was true. I don't know when you contacted them, because recently they got permission to sell them. Other thing is that the CEO of Planet recently said to Miguel Roman that there is not they think there is no business case. And maybe it's also because they try to operate them, and it's not their satellite. They bought it, no? So maybe they don't know how to operate it properly. But it's sad, no? Because we are buying from the Chinese, and I would like to buy. I would prefer to buy from the US than from the Chinese, mainly because, first of all, the Chinese don't allow me to take pictures from China. It's funny, no? or on Russia, I don't know. But first of all, right now will be very interesting, no, to see if the sanctions are having an impact. Will be very interesting to see what's going on in Russia, no, how many shops are closing and so on. But no, I don't have the funds to do that with the Chinese satellite, and I don't know even if they will allow us. And obviously, for example, they don't allow to take any images in Ukraine.
Yeah, one of our problems is it's mostly always cloudy overhead here.
Yeah.
A lot of the satellites say we will take a certain number of pictures and you get what you get, and that's not good enough for us because what we would get is pictures of clouds. So,
Yeah.
and they don't allow you to specify clear nights. We will give you clear nights only.
Mine in the Gimli in principle they put you a minimum of, I think they guarantee you 20% of cloudiness.
Okay.
So if you're interested in that, contact me, okay, and I can help you on that. I have to disclosure one thing here. I have a small company that helps to fund the citizen science project, but it's a company, yeah. And one of the things that we do is we sell satellite images, no, from and we help the people to process them and so on. We are not making huge business of it, and even we are so not business oriented that we want to calibrate all the ISS archive with a grant, and we are talking now with NASA and with other colleagues in Europe to try to do that. That will put this company completely out of business on the ISS bit. But what we want is make the science of the night available to the most people possible, no? And I think that's good for us also. This company was just funded because when I finished my PhD, I was not able to request funds for myself, and some colleagues were interested in getting this service of calibrating the images. So that's why I started the company, no, just to be able to sell to other colleagues, and that they needed this research, no. Anyway, from once a year more or less, even for researchers that don't have funds, we collaborate for free, no. We make a call and we give some images for free. But we hope soon we will have a bunch of ISS calibrated images available for everybody coming from the citizen science bit. Any other questions in the chat from the audience? Okay, this presentation, I'm not going to post it on Zenodo itself because it's nearly identical to the presentation that I already posted about all this in the conference from with ISA 2 weeks ago. So I will put in the description of the YouTube video that presentation. Okay, but it's exactly the same. So it's just some of the slides that I have there in the back and I didn't show them now are built in the presentation itself, because then I have half an hour and I have here like 1 hour and a half. Okay, I hope you have enjoyed. I don't know if anyone want to say goodbye.
Thank you, Alex. Bye.
Bye. Bye, everybody. And I will post this in YouTube in some minutes. Ciao.
Ciao.